Brinquitón o Triunfos Robados cumple 20 años e hice este informe especial en el que hablé con su director de fotografía y con su diseñadora de producción sobre cómo fue que se gestó este clásico que se creó allá por el año 2000 y tuvo como protagonista a una muy pero muy joven Kirsten Dunst.
We now return to Mira Akien and Contré with our latest interview.
Interesting, no one had expectations. I had read the script, and I think because I wasn't American, I saw its potential. I saw its excitement outside of America because I saw how much cheerleading. I think Americans take cheerleaders so for granted, and the whole iconography and the structure of cheerleading. But it's such an icon. It's such an American icon in the rest of the world.
I thought the script was decent. You know, it seemed like a fun film, but no idea whatsoever that it would become what it is. And it was just shocking. It just really blew everyone away.
I had faith in it. I didn't know it was going to be as huge as it was. But I also loved the script, and I loved the story, and I loved the imagery, and I loved what we could do with it.
I'm bitchin', great hair. The boys all love to stare. I'm wanted, I'm hot, I'm everything you're not.
There was like this cheerleader camp where all the actresses like trained for I think 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Were you a part of that, like trying to see how it was going to work? Maybe like that helped your work as a DOP?
Oh yeah, Peyton and I would visit them rehearsing, practicing the cheerleading moves, and that certainly helped. And you know, we got to watch Ann Fletcher, you know, work with them and get an understanding of the visuals, the physicality of their moves and their tumbling and their throws and tosses up into the air. It was definitely enlightening. It definitely helped Peyton and I get an understanding of the potential visuals.
I think I went to maybe visit once. What I was more interested in is finding the research for all the cheerleading contests that are, you know, the real cheerleading contests. And what I found out is that they were very sad.
Ready? Okay. Sorry. Ready? Okay. Shut up. Be aggressive. Be aggressive.
They were very disappointing, and they were extremely sad little events where they were like a little bit of a curtain and maybe a little tiny palm tree and a tiny little banner, and they were so unceremonial and so unmagnificent that it was really disappointing. And it was also before there was like Google and search, and there were no books. There was like one little black and white book I could find. So there was really nothing to draw from except, you know, like, I guess my imagination. The thing that we had to start with was the UCLA gave us permission to use their name and to use their, you know, their logo, etc. And so their colors were the blue colors, and that was my one given that I had to go with. So that was my springboard for all the blue that was in the film. But I could go anywhere from that. That was my only restriction.
I said burr. It's cold in here. I said there must be some Toros in the atmosphere.
How was coming with the identity of those different themes?
Well, we obviously wanted them to be, wanted them to be very different, very identifiable. Toros, bull, rage, red was something. And then it turned out that Kirsten Dunst, she came back with, her agent came back with colors that she looked good in. Unfortunately, red and black were two colors she looked good in. So that kind of just confirmed that will be the Toros colors.
Yeah.
So we went with the red, white, and the black. And then the clovers, I mean, it was interesting because I didn't know any of this. Like, there was no history of cheerleading for me. So apparently, like, and it took me a while to realize, like, afterwards, like, that traditionally the clovers, who are like an Irish thing, would probably traditionally be more like a purple. I think it was like a purple and a green and a white. It's kind of like a classic cheerleading color. And I was just, no, that can't happen. So I came up with the orange, the green and the red, which people now say is a very African sort of like color scheme, which I am. I'm from South Africa, and so But to me, it had punch. It contrasted. They both had to work against the UCLA blue beautifully, and they both had to have like a strong visual impact.
Hi.
Just like any movie, it comes down to what you're photographing, and in this case, it's all about locations. Typically, these competitions are held indoor in an auditorium. It's not they're not visually stunning in any way. They're just these kind of gymnasiums which lack any character, and we have this beautiful coast at our disposal. So, and there was this great amphitheater, and I made an effort to really have it set there, and I think it was well worth it. It would have been a challenge to make it look as good as it did if we were forced to shoot it in an auditorium.
Didn't we just see this routine?
And then the competitions, we had to sort of like have the first one. So it had to be something that was sort of visually kind of eye-catching, but we didn't want it to like sort of take the climax away from the final competition. And then we found this amazing kind of gym had that vaulted ceiling, and that was sort of spectacular, but in a sort of quite simple way. And so that worked out perfectly it was called the regionals. So that worked out perfectly for the regionals. And then for the final competition, we looked at a few locations, and I was sort of torn between the one at this beach, and then there was another one that was sort of much more of a cheer and sort of gymnastic. We went for the one with the beach. It had depth. It had, there was something about being at the ocean that sort of had this beautiful, airy, bright feeling, bright and light, and the wind moving. And so we went with that one, and it ended up turning out really beautifully. It was a very sad-looking place when we went to see it.
Yeah. And you transformed it.
But Peyton saw the potential in it, and we just kind of went for it. And just like putting up all the flags that were flying in the wind made it quite ceremonial and quite beautiful. And the bright UCLA colors, and then there was sort of bright green turf. I mean, everything just kind of worked out really nicely.
Daytona, Florida, day number 2. By sundown, only one squad can call themselves UCA National Champions 2000.
First of all, the choreographer, Ann Fletcher, she videotapes all the routines, and so director and I have a chance to study the videotape of them practicing. The more we study it, the more we know where certain characters are going to be at any moment in the routine.
I think the main actresses didn't perform the huge stunts, that you like made wide shots to hide them among all the other stunt performers. So how was that technical part of the movie for you?
The thing is that I think cheerleading and most dance is best photographed head to toe and even wider. It's it's a choreographed routine amongst maybe a dozen people. So even if Kirsten Dunst was doing everything herself, we would still have those moments where we want to see the entire stage. We want to see what's going on, and so it was just natural that we would want to be that wide. There have been dance movies or dance routines in movies, and sometimes they might get too tight, which is, I think, frustrating for the audience because you miss so much physicality. It's like watching a sporting event. You don't want to be too close. You want to see where they're going, what they're doing, and if you get too close onto action like that, then you get lost. You don't know what's happening. I mean, they were in the routines for a lot of it. There were, the really big athletic stuff, the tosses. So, they would get substituted with the, I guess you could call them professional cheerleaders.
We wanted Kirsten as a character to contrast to who her parents were. They were architects. They were supposed to be a little more sophisticated. They were supposed to be slightly horrified by the fact that they had a cheerleading daughter, because cheerleading girls traditionally were ditzy. They were seen as ditzy. And I think part of the movie and part of the success of this movie was showing that it's actually a real skill and a real talent to be a cheerleader, that it's not just like shaking pom-poms and shaking your ass, that it's really gymnastic.
Oh, Mickey, you're so fine, you blow my mind. Hey, Mickey, hey, Mickey,
I don't remember, I have to assume it was Peyton Reed's idea.
That ended up being sort of a very last minute, very impromptu. I think they couldn't kind of find an ending for the movie, and then Peyton came up with the Hey Mickey idea, which was just so much fun, and so it was quite spontaneous in terms of what the art department did.
I think it was also inspired by my best friend's wedding. I think they had kind of similar, after the credits, did they do a song and dance routine, lip syncing?
We were going to do a balloon drop, but it was sort of at the ocean, so we couldn't really do that, so we just ended up tossing like things and streamers and toys, and it just became like a really fun day, and a lot of it wasn't that well planned, but I think they had an amazing prop department, and they came up with the goods and had enough to throw.
There wasn't a lot of physicality. It was more just letting their characters be captured.
Yeah.
It was more like them just having a good time on a dance floor.
hey, Mickey. Oh, Mickey, you're so fine, you blow my mind. Hey, Mickey. Yes, I realize the healing you.
It was just really a fun project. The girls were great.
Yeah.
They were all fun.
Yeah.
They were all excited to be there.
Yeah.
And I think it was also exciting thematically with the sort of like white appropriation of black culture, which is long before the conversations really came up. I mean, the conversations now are really happening about Black Lives Matter, whites stealing culture. So it was sort of way ahead of its time. And although we didn't talk about it and didn't have the language, it was just kind of in the zeitgeist that it was exciting to be part of that conversation as well.
Without that movie, I don't know if I'd be in the same position I am in now. After that movie, I basically got all of my jobs from that movie. Just as soon as that movie came out, I was getting phone calls for work.